All right, students. I hope all of you are doing well at your homes during this pandemic. Today, let us try to learn something in English. Have you heard these two terms that are flashing on your screens right now, which are active voice and passive voice? If yes, if you have heard these terms before, try to recollect them, try to recollect what they mean, and watch the video. And if you have not heard these words before, just watch the video. In English, there are two ways in which we can say something. One is in the active voice and the other one is in the passive voice. In the active voice, the focus is given to the subject, which is the doer of the action. For example, let's take this sentence, Raju is holding the umbrella. In this particular sentence, who is doing the action? The action is being done by Raju. So Raju becomes our subject. What is the action that is happening? Holding. Raju is holding the umbrella. So umbrella is the object. Object is basically the part of the sentence on which the action is being performed. So here we are in this particular sentence, since it's in the active voice, we are focusing on the subject. The focus is on Raju. Now when we convert this sentence to passive voice, the focus is given to the object. So the sentence will look like this. The umbrella is being held by Raju. So in this particular sentence, the object comes in the starting part of the sentence and the subject comes at the end of the sentence because the focus is given to the object in the passive voice. Take a second and look at these two sentences again. Raju is holding the umbrella. It is in the active voice. When we convert that into passive voice, it becomes the umbrella is being held by Raju. The main difference in both these sentences is that the focus in the first sentence is being given to the subject, and in the second sentence the focus is being given to the object. Let's look at a few more examples. While looking at these examples, I want you to observe how the focus is shifting from subject to object. Let's look at the first one. Shyam is writing the letter. Now, what is the subject here? The subject is Shyam. Let me just highlight that for you. Shyam is the subject because Shyam is the doer of the action, which is writing. What is the object in this sentence? Letter is the object. Now, when we convert this into passive voice, the object comes at the beginning and the subject goes to the end of the sentence because, like I said, the focus is shifting from the subject in the first sentence to the object in the first sentence. So Shyam is writing the letter becomes the letter is being written by Shyam. Let's look at the second example. The cashier counted the money. The cashier is the subject, money is the object. When it's converted into its passive voice, it becomes the money was counted by the cashier. The lion chased the deer. The deer was chased by the lion. Rahul ate the apple. The apple was eaten by Rahul. I hope you are getting a sense of how the focus is shifting from subject to object when sentences are converted from active voice to passive voice. Just take a second, pause this video here and try to look at these sentences and try to make sense out of them. This is how sentences in active voice can be converted to passive voice. Now, before we master this entire concept and before we go to the exercise part of it, there are two main things that we need to understand. Of course, we'll not go into the depth of this yet. Probably in the future videos we will. But every verb has a participle form. Now, if you look at it, every verb basically has three forms. One is the base form, then the tense form, and the participle form. Now, if you look at these two tables that are flashing on your screens right now, let's take two examples from this first table. Blow. The base form of the verb is blow. When we convert that into past tense, it becomes blew, and the past participle form of blow is blown. Break, broke, broken. Choose, chose, chosen. If you look at this, we have a few verbs in their present tense, and the present participle, past tense, past participle is also given. This is just to give you some examples of how words can change into their different forms. For example, let's see, there is this verb hold. When we convert that into present participle, it becomes holding. Past tense of hold is held, and past participle of hold is also held. The verb, if we take hide as the example, present participle is hiding, the past tense is hid, and the past participle is hidden. Now, all that you have to do to understand these things is to pause the video here, make a note of all these verbs, make a note of these tables, and try to get used to them, and read more and more books and watch more and more videos that are recorded in English for you to get a sense of how certain verbs are changing into different forms. I'm also attaching one more list here. We all know what regular and irregular verbs are. Regular verbs are those to which we can add ed to get the past tense. Irregular verbs are those to which ed cannot be added to get the past tense. Let's take a couple of examples here. If the verb is guess, the past tense is guessed and the past participle is also guessed. If the verb is laugh, the past tense of laugh is laugh and the past participle of laugh is laughed. If we look at irregular verbs, let's take eat as an example. Eat is in its present tense. When we convert that into past tense, it becomes ate. And the past participle of eat is eaten. For fall, it is fall, fell, fallen. For feed, it is feed, fed, and fed. Forgive, forgave, forgiven. Take a minute, pause this video here, and just make a note of all these words so that you get a sense of how verbs are changing into different forms. I will record a video later specifically on how verbs change into different forms so that you get a better understanding of that. But for now, let us go back to active and passive voice. When we are converting a sentence from active voice to passive voice, we use the participle form of verbs in the passive voice. For example, let's look at the first one. Here the verb is writing. Shyam is writing the letter. When we convert that to passive voice, it becomes the letter is being written by Shyam. So here written is the participle form of write. Here counted, the participle form of counted is counted itself. For chase, it is chased. Let's look at the last example that is on the screen again. Rahul ate the apple. Now the participle form of eat is eaten, and that is why we are using the word eaten here. So one thing that you always have to remember is when you are converting a sentence from active voice to passive voice, in the passive voice you use the participle form of the verb. The second thing that you also have to remember is when we talk about verbs, what is the basic thing that all of us know about verbs? We all know that verbs are action words. Now verbs are of two types, the transitive verbs and the intransitive verbs. These terms might sound new to you, but it is very simple. Transitive verbs are those verbs that need an object for the sentence to make sense. We know what is an object, right? If you look at this slide again, an object is that part of the sentence on which the action is being performed. Alright, so transitive verbs are those verbs for which an object is necessary for the sentence to make sense. For example, If I just say Shyam brought, does the sentence make sense? What did Shyam bring? The sentence is incomplete. It does not make sense. So I need to add an object to the sentence and make it Shyam brought a coffee or Shyam brought a bottle. Then with the object, the sentence makes sense. Now this sentence is in active voice. Shyam brought a coffee. Why is it in active voice? Can you just take a second to think why this is in active voice? Well, it is an active voice because the subject is coming first and the object is following it. Yeah? Now, can you try to convert this into passive voice on your own? Cool. In intransitive verbs, for intransitive verbs, they do not need an object for the sentence to make sense. Transitive verbs need an object for the sentence to make sense, whereas intransitive verbs do not need an object for the sentence to make sense. For example, he slept. This sentence has a subject but does not have an object. It has a subject and a verb but no object, yet the sentence makes sense. Doesn't it? They jumped. There is a subject and there is a verb, but there is no object. And it does not even need an object for the sentence to make sense. This makes these intransitive verbs. Now, I have a question for all of you. Can we convert these sentences into passive voice? He slept. Always remember, in passive voice, we are focusing on the object. Here, if these sentences do not have an object, how do we convert them into passive voice? We cannot convert sentences with intransitive verbs into passive voice. Clear? Cool. Now that we have spoken so much about active voice and passive voice, before we go on to the exercise section, let me just in a quick minute rewind whatever we have learned, like a quick recap. In English, there are two ways in which we can say a sentence. One is in the active voice and the other one is in the passive voice. In the active voice, the focus is given to the subject, which is the doer of the action. In the passive voice, the focus is given to the object. When we convert a particular sentence from active voice to passive voice, we use the participle form of verbs. The second thing that you also have to remember is sentences with intransitive verbs cannot be converted into passive voice because these sentences do not have an object, and it is essential for an object to be present in the sentence for it to be in passive voice. Alright, now it's time for practice. I've given 10 different sentences which are in active voice. I want all of you to take out your notebooks and try to convert these sentences into their passive forms. And the second part of the exercise is for you to convert, I just made a mistake here, is to convert these sentences which are in their passive forms. I want you to convert them into their active voice. So can you all do this? Obviously you can. I want you to pause the screen here and note these down so that you can do this. One more suggestion that I have is, in case you want to note down any other part of this slideshow, please pause the video and make a note of it. This is going to really help you. In the future videos, we will talk about how these participle forms are formed for different verbs and what are the different forms that verbs really have. Yeah, I would also request you to use this pandemic time to read as many novels, as many books, as many newspapers as possible so that you get a hang of the language. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you finish the exercise that is at the end of it. Bye-bye.